Tutorial we studied about the interceptors. Today we will be studying the very important concept in Spring MVC, that is exceptional handling. As you all know that in any web application an exception can occur if a web server is not able to find a particular web page. Then in such scenarios what happens, a user is able to see a default exception or error page. Now it's a cross-cutting concern that across the entire application. Now we need to handle this exception which is being thrown by the server. Now in the Spring MVC exceptional handling we are having two ways to handle it. One is at controller level, another is at global level. What does this controller level means? That in each controller class that is annotated with @controller annotation, we are going to handle the exception. How? By using the @exceptional handler annotation. This annotation take exception class as an argument. It could be a generic exception class or IO exception, arithmetic exception, null point exception dot class. So it will take that exception class as an argument. Now this annotation is written where? In a controller class. In a controller class, if any request handler method throws an exception, then we write exceptional handler methods, which is just like my request handler methods only. And at the top of those exceptional handler methods, we are going to write this annotation. Now, say if one controller class is throwing a null pointer exception and I have handled it using an exceptional handler method. Now another controller class throws same exception, that is null pointer exception. Then I need to again write the same logic of handling the null pointer exception in the another controller class only. So I'll be writing same logic at two places, and similarly if you're having 100, we need to write it at 100 places. So to avoid this, what we use is we use a global level approach. In this, the exceptional handler methods are written at one place and used across the entire application. And how we use this exception handler? We use a controller advice annotation for it. So you have a controller advice annotation to handle it. Okay, now let's see the working. Let's say that this is my this is the UL that user first hit. So I'll just add the block comment and I'll throw one exception from here, say throw new. I'm just hard coding the exception right now, that is throw new arithmetic exception, otherwise you have the logic and all that. So this is, you can say this, that this is arithmetic exception. Now here you need to write that say it's accept an exception object if you want to print, and just like in request handler, so here we can return the error page also. Say I'll just say arithmetic exception, so I'll create an error page with the name as arithmetic exception.jsp, and here I need to write the annotation exception handler. You get it? It takes the value which is same as the class exception class name, that is arithmetic exception dot class. Maybe I've written something wrong, so yeah, maybe the spelling mistakes was there, so it's arithmetic exception now. But where it is returning an GSP file, and we don't have any GSP file where this exception is being handled, so we'll create another GSP file. you can simply say application arithmetic exception. So now instead of user being shown this particular internal server error page, here I just shown IO exception, what will be getting a proper response if this URL is being hit. Okay, so let's see the working of it. So what I'm getting, application has encountered the arithmetic exception and not that particular error page. Because in training form.html, it goes to this particular request handler. This request handler is throwing an exception, so it check for an exception handler annotation in its class where this particular exception is being catched. So he sees that this is the value which is catching this particular exception class. So here it is returning my arithmetic exception. This is nothing but a view name only, going to view resolver and finding the view. So this is going to this arithmetic exception or JSP, and here I have written that exception is encountered arithmetic exception. So this way we have handled the exception and shown the client a particular error page is case के अंदर. Now if say this exception it occurs in other controller class also, then we need to write the same logic there also. Now clear? So that is a user global level approach, but there is one more thing in controller level approach. Say if we are having a null pointer exception, then I need to write another exception handler the same way I have written this. Another exception handler will be there like the name null pointer exception dot class, and this will not be arithmetic exception handler method, but it will be null pointer exception handler, and the web page we'll be getting is okay. So now if the null pointer exception occurs, it throws not arithmetic, and another request handler say throws null pointer, then it will check for the exception handler with this class and goes over there and then returns a null pointer exception or JSP. So in this way we need to write the multiple exception handler methods in my one controller class to handle the multiple exceptions. Now say if there is an exception which is being not handled, say this null pointer exception only. Okay, let me just comment this. Okay, so it is throwing an arithmetic exception, but it is not finding an appropriate exception handler method for it. So what it will show, if I am doing this, it's just like same as Java, that this particular exception is not handled, but the null pointer exception is being handled. Oh, it's showing me a arithmetic exception because that is not being handled. So in such scenarios, if some exception occurs and that is not being handled, then we have the main class of all the exception, that is which class? Exception class. So if the child exception is not being handled, then we go to the parent class, that is exception class. So that is generic exceptional handler method. So let's just copy this. Instead of null pointer, it will have a generic exceptional Now it will look for the closest. If it is not able to find the child exception, it will go to the parent exception. Let me just write one more JSP file, that is the generic exceptional handler. You can write anything over here. Now let's run it and see if it shows me the default exception page or that is being handled by my generic exceptional handler. And if you're having both the cases, that is exception and also arithmetic exception, then it will go to the closest, that is arithmetic exception. If the child is not being found, then only it goes to the parent exceptional handler, just like we have the Java. Okay, so it has not shown me the default error page now and handled by the exceptional handler with exception. So this is how the controller level exceptional handler methods are being written. So in the next tutorial, we'll be studying about the global level